Hi, and thanks for watching this message video, and don't forget to go through the life lesson that goes with it. And for those who can't make a Sunday, don't forget that there's a podcast of that sermon that goes along with this message video, life lesson, kind of a part one, part two thing. Today we're continuing on in our series where we're giving thanks to God for 5 different things. And in the process of giving thanks to God, not only does it please Him, it also has an impact on our attitudes. Gratitude changes or alters attitude. And then finally, it can be evangelistic. It can make a difference on the way that somebody else views God when we give Him thanks for these things. Today, we're going to be focusing on what it means to give thanks to God for His protection and His provision. Now, when it comes to those who believe in God, we are supposed to be the best examples of what it looks like to trust in God's protection and provision, and therefore not show fear when things go sideways. For example, if you know the story of Joshua, the understudy of Moses, when Moses handed things over to Joshua, God appeared to him and told him over and over and over again, don't be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be scared. And the reason why is when things went sideways, He wanted him to show his confidence in God. But when it comes to the overall story of the Israelites, they struggled with this, and they struggled with this from the very beginning. In fact, if you know the very beginning, that was with Abram, where God came to him and said, hey, I want to make a nation out of you. And He made him promises to protect him. For instance, here's what we're told. Genesis 15:1. The Lord spoke to Abram in a vision and said to him, do not be afraid, Abram, for I will protect you, and your reward will be great. Even though Abram, or Abraham, was thrilled to get this promise from God to protect him, and if you know the story, to give him a son, which is what he really wanted, he struggled to believe in these promises at first, and therefore he made some bad choices out of fear. However, God continued to develop him and work with him so that his faith in God, Abram's faith in God or trust in God's protection and provision, would be developed. And he eventually got to that place, as you know, where a son was born to him, and he did trust and fear God more than anything else. And so, one of the things we can learn from Abram's story is that God is patient with us when it comes to developing our trust in His protection and provision. Another example of this theme of protection and provision is again seen years later with Abraham's descendants, the Israelites, when they were stuck in Egypt. Again, if you know the story, God sends down plague after plague after plague on the Egyptians, but the Israelites, or the Hebrews, were unharmed. They were protected. In spite of seeing all of this, they still struggled to believe that God would protect them. And so under Moses' leadership, He made them wander in the desert for 40 years before entering into the promised land. In fact, look at what it is that Moses said to the people on God's behalf shortly before handing off the reign or the baton to Joshua. Deuteronomy 7:7-15. The Lord did not set His heart on you and choose you because you were more numerous than other nations, for you were the smallest of all nations. Rather, it was simply that the Lord loves you, and He was keeping the oath He had sworn to your ancestors. That is why the Lord rescued you with such a strong hand from your slavery and from the oppressive hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Understand, therefore, that the Lord your God is indeed God. He is the faithful God who keeps His covenant for 1,000 generations and lavishes His unfailing love on those who love Him and obey His commands. But He does not hesitate to punish and destroy those who reject Him. Therefore you must obey all these commands, decrees, and regulations I am giving you today. If you listen to these regulations and faithfully obey them, the Lord your God will keep His covenant of unfailing love with you, as He promised with an oath to your ancestors. He will love you and bless you, and He will give you many children. He will give fertility to your land and your animals. When you arrive in the land He swore to give your ancestors, you will have large harvests of grain, new wine, and olive oil, and great herds of cattle, sheep, and goats. You will be blessed above all the nations of the earth. None of your men or women will be childless, and all your livestock will bear young. And the Lord will protect you from all sickness. He will not let you suffer from the terrible diseases you knew in Egypt, but he will inflict them on all your enemies. The word if is a big word. Tiny, but a big word, because it implies terms and conditions. And in this particular situation, the terms and conditions that applied were in order for the people of Israel to experience all of those things like blessings of fertility and crops and kids and protection from enemies, what they had to do was pay attention to or listen to and then obey the covenant, the Mosaic law. Otherwise, they would not have that protection. They would not have that provision. Now, in a similar way, this principle still applies today, meaning even though God promises to protect us from evil and to provide for our daily needs, there are terms and conditions to his promises. For example, one of the terms and conditions that existed in the Mosaic Law or in Moses' day was that everybody had to be pure, or that purity was something that everybody needed to pursue. Take a look at what it is that a lack of purity resulted in when it came to God's protection and provision amongst the Israelites at that time, and then look at what it is that Paul said to Timothy about purity in a modern day setting. Deuteronomy 23:12 through 14. You must have a designated area outside the camp where you can go to relieve yourself. Each of you must have a spade as part of your equipment. Whenever you relieve yourself, dig a hole with a spade and cover the excrement. The camp must be holy, for the Lord your God moves around in your camp to protect you and to defeat your enemies. You must not see any shameful thing among you, or he will turn away from you. Second Timothy 2:21 and 22. If you keep yourself pure, you will be a special utensil for honorable use. Your life will be clean, and you will be ready for the master to use you for every good work. Run from anything that stimulates youthful lusts. Instead, pursue righteous living, faithfulness, love, and peace. Enjoy the companionship of those who call on the Lord with pure hearts. When our hearts aren't pure, God can't use us for the things that he really wants to use us for. And when we're hanging around with people who aren't calling on the name of the Lord with pure hearts, it won't be long before our hearts are equally unpure or crappy. And let's face it, that was the problem with the Israelites. Whether it was literally or figuratively the situation, their attitudes were ones that weren't right. They weren't pure. As a result, God made them wander the desert for 40 years as a way to weed out those who had crappy attitudes. But it still didn't work. And if you know the story, what ended up happening is after Joshua's term of leadership and throughout the period of time of the judges, the people of Israel, the children, the first people of God, they stopped looking to him for their protection and provision. And like the crappy attitude people around them, they decided, oh, we know what's best for us, for our protection and provision. We need a king. So they go to Samuel and inform him of their decision. And here's how God handled their attitudes. 1 Samuel 8:7 through 9. Do everything they say to you, the Lord replied, for they are rejecting me, not you. They don't want me to be their king any longer. Ever since I brought them from Egypt, they have continually abandoned me and followed other gods. And now they are giving you the same treatment. Do as they ask, but solemnly warn them about the way a king will reign over them. The first people of God, the Israelites, struggled to thank God for his protection and his provision as they followed his will. And the reason why is because they kept getting tripped up by following their own will. As a result, not only was God not pleased, not only was he not glorified amongst the nations like he should be, but their attitudes never changed or developed. Now, we, as followers, we're the second people of God, you might say, and we have the Spirit of Christ in us. Therefore, as Christians, we should be the best example of what it means to fully trust in God for protection and provision as we live for His will, rather than looking to man-made leaders or to a government to protect and provide for us as we live for ourselves. This is so important that it's what I'm going to be talking about on Sunday, and I hope you can join me.